Nick, while we've got you here, we've got to make the most of this appearance. There's a big heavyweight fight actually taking place this weekend on a Sunday, of all places, Gibraltar. We're not going to refight that war, but Dillian Whyte against Ebenezer Tetteh. Ebenezer Tetteh, former opponent of Daniel Dubois, of course, although it didn't last very long. You might not even remember having fought him. But Dillian Whyte, I haven't seen him in the ring since March when he went past Christian Hammer. If anything, this seems like a step down from Christian Hammer, and it's not easy to do that these days. Hammer used to be quite useful back in the day. Looking at Dillian Whyte, his recent form, inactivity obviously as well, what do you assess he might still have to offer the heavyweight division in 2024?
You know, I think Dillian's just trying to stay relevant. You look at his last fight, Christian Hammer, but a bit of a washed-up heavyweight, really, to be honest with you. You know, Tong's strong, tough guy, but, you know, you expected Dillian to go out there and knock him out like he did. I think Tetteh, he's not fought much since he was beat by Dubois. I think he's had 4 fights, is it, since he fought Dubois in 2019?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a good record, 23-1, but realistically, you know, if Dillian Whyte's got half of what he's shown left, it's going to be a pretty easy night's work for him. And I think it's just about trying to stay relevant for Dillian Whyte and hoping that he gets one of those big fights out in Saudi for a big payday and possibly, you know, sail off into the sunset after it, depending who that's against. But whether that'll happen or not, I don't know. I don't know if the Saudis are going to be willing to pay the sort of money that he'd probably expect, you know, given his previous accolades and challenging for world titles, the fight with Tyson and being number 1 for so long. But I think maybe, you know, Father Time's going to play a role in that, and I don't really think there's much to see from Whyte really going forward. He's maybe got one big fight left in him in a payday, but I don't really think he can challenge for a world title again.
Is it tricky in a sense then, because of what you've just said, finding the right opponent? Because a win over someone like Tetteh, even if he beats him in the first round, he's still not done better than Dubois did against him. That's not the sort of performance that's going to get him a big fight necessarily, or get people clamoring for a big fight for him. But if they put him in against someone half decent, because of where he is in his career, we might see that as a risk. He'll get knocked off before the payday that sends him into the sunset. Like, how, if you were his team or his management team, how do you match him at this stage?
I think very carefully. Like I said, I mean, he's realistically, you know, he's just looking to make as much money as he possibly can with whatever time he's got left. And keeping active and keeping relevant is the only way to do that. So, yes, it's a bit of a tricky one, like you say. I think on paper, you look at it, a guy's 23-1. Sounds like a great opponent. It'll probably push him a little bit up the rankings, probably keeps him active, keeps him training. But yeah, it's a difficult one. And the thing is as well, the risk has got to equal the reward. So if the money's not there to take the risk, why would they do it? He's already made a lot of money. You don't want to tarnish your reputation now at this stage in his career unless it's in a big fight for a load of money. So I can't really see. I don't know. Listen, be interesting to see what happens. You never know how Joshua, what's going to pan out with him and Fury. I think that's the fight for Joshua now. But you never know. I don't know. Very difficult to predict now with the way the landscape is and the way things have moved on since Dillian's been out of the ring. So be interesting to see what happens.
Well, the rematch with Joshua, which was, of course, aborted last year or the year before, whatever it was, with the failed drug test, that seemed like a natural even now. You know, once Whyte served his time, he's come back, assuming he gets a Border Control license or they let him fight on a foreign license, whatever. That seemed like an easy one. You know, Joshua's lost to Dubois. He needs a fight to come back in that he feels he can win, get his confidence back, but also one that's going to sell at the box office. A rematch with Dillian Whyte seemingly would do that. And then for Dillian's case, that's the big payday. He wins, he gets more big paydays. He loses, there'll be enough to sail off into the sunset, as you alluded to. But now, because everyone's talking up the possibility of Fury-Joshua finally happening, and I think there's a bit of urgency around that now as well, because, you know, Joshua's lost his last fight, Fury's lost his last fight. So people are starting to think, whoa, you know, are they just past? Are they just going over the other side of that hill now? We need to get this done before it disappears forever. You know, you don't want it to be as late as Pacquiao Mayweather or even Brooke Khan. So now it seems like the likely next opponent for Joshua is probably Fury, which is a much bigger fight than a rematch between Joshua and Whyte. It kind of leaves Whyte potentially in no man's land, especially if he's not visible to the general public at large, because he's not on the major promotional platforms, and he's not fighting in the UK or on the Riyadh shows. So he's in a bit of a tricky position. If it's not Joshua next for Dillian Whyte, if he goes the Fury route, who does that leave for Whyte that you think could make a big kind of payday for him, big commercial spectacle?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for Whyte because I think with the troubles that he's been having outside of the ring, he's had to fly under the radar. The best thing for him to do was to really stay quiet, say nothing, and let people, over time, people forget whatever's gone in the past, you know what I mean? So Whyte's not really had a choice and putting himself out there too much. Now, I think the fight's taking place in Gibraltar, but I don't actually even know if it's taking place under the British Border Control.
Don't think so.
Nah, so I mean, that you can read into that what you want, but that probably shows you there's still maybe a few outstanding issues in place there. And I know his last fight was in Ireland before that as well. So yeah, listen, I think it's like who needs him? Or does Joshua need him? Definitely not. Joshua's made hundreds of millions, and I don't think he needs to give Dillian Whyte an opportunity to beat him again unless it's meaningful. So, for who else could he fight? It's probably, I really don't know. I can't think of anybody in particular that, like, as a fan, I really want to see him fight. Unless it was Joshua, unless it was, I'm struggling. I'm really struggling to come up with anybody. To be honest, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's issues, so to speak, with the board, but I don't think he currently has a British license. So I think, it's going to be a struggle to fight on shows in the UK and also the ones in Riyadh, because the board administer those as well.
Yeah.
So he does have a foreign license from the US. The board do have precedent for letting UK fighters compete under foreign licenses, Tyson Fury being the most famous example of that. So perhaps that's an option going forward, but maybe it just wasn't something they wanted to do for this particular one. But yeah, Gibraltar's hardly a boxing hotbed. I'm sure people will be tuning in and watching it just to see how he looks and how much he's got left and so on. But that's the other thing. If it's all over within 90 seconds, 2 minutes, like it was against Dubois, what does that tell us? Doesn't really answer those questions about Dillian Whyte. And will there be boxers out there, like you said, Joshua doesn't need him, but other fighters, will they want to take the risk against Dillian, not knowing how much he's got left? Because he could be a great name on someone's record, but the flip side is he could have a bit more left than people suspect and really upset the apple cart.
Maybe the loser of one of the fights out in Saudi. I mean, maybe not Joe or Daniel, but yeah, like Joe and Dillian Whyte have got previous, so maybe if Daniel was to lose that or Joe loses that, maybe the loser of that fighting Dillian. I don't know if the loser of Zhang or Kabayel could maybe fight him. One person I would quite like to see fight him is Martin Bakole. They had a bit of a dust. Remember, they had that dust up over in Poland. Big fight on the camera. And that's potentially a fight that I would personally quite like to see. But listen, for the casual, maybe not, because they don't know enough about Martin, and maybe they're not aware enough of Dillian at the moment for that to be a viable fight. But listen, you never know. That could be an interesting fight, and one that I know for sure Martin would be very much interested in if he got the opportunity. But I think, listen, he's got a fight in March, possibly against Efe Ajagba, and then he'd become the mandatory for the IBF. So maybe even him, he doesn't really need Dillian Whyte, but that could maybe be a fight that would be interesting.
Well, in the last few minutes we've got left, I will ask you for some more heavyweight predictions, as you're here and you've got expert experience with a lot of these guys. But Stephen's actually asked Okoli against Whyte. How would you see that playing out?
Yeah, listen, I think that, I've not even been thinking of Lawrence Okoli as a heavyweight because he's only had one fight there. But listen, it could be a fight. Both British fighters, both got a pretty big following in the UK. Could definitely, both proud. I think they're both from London, aren't they? So a bit of an edge there. Could definitely be a fight, and probably a good step up for a Coley. See if he's got what it takes at heavyweight. He had a good performance at the weekend, but could definitely be a decent fight going down the line for him.
Okay, so we talked about February the 22nd, and we said about the Eliminator, or it's WBC interim title fight, I believe now, between Zhang and his name's just suddenly gone.
Kabayel.
Ajit Kabayel. How do you kind of weigh that one up?
Yeah, listen, I favour Kabayel. I think he's phenomenally fit. He's one of the fittest guys I've ever seen in the gym. And also outside of the gym and training, running wise, and his cardiovascular is unbelievable. And I think that's Zhang's biggest weakness, his gas tank. So we all know he's dangerous for the first minute of every round. And like we said before, he's a massive puncher. But I just think Kabayel's work rate, he'll put too much pressure on him and he'll break him down. I'm favouring Kabayel on that.
Is Kabayel's power underrated, do you think? Because we saw what he did to Makhmudov, and there's rumours of what he did to Joshua in sparring. But you see him more as a boxer generally, or most people do. But is his power better than people think?
Yeah, listen, he's got great power, but I think it's his body punching. I think if you look at the heavyweight division, it's probably him and Martin are the two biggest body punchers in the division. And the fact that he's so fit and he keeps the pressure on you the entire time, body shots are incredibly debilitating. And I just think that over time, he grinds you down, he gets you out of there unless you've got an answer to it. So I think his power is good, but I think it's more his fitness and the pace that he can set that really, grind his opponents down.